Welcome to the PMI African Conference. My name is Gladys Ngweno. I'm an Agile Transformation Lead in one of the leading telecommunications in Eastern and Central Africa. I'm glad to be here in this conference today to speak to all of you. The theme is around Africa, an ecosystem of change makers. And my topic today is around being the change. So in Africa, the whole ecosystem full of many change makers, how do we start being the change? Because I believe it starts at a personal level if you're indeed going to have meaningful change. My talk as well was inspired by an O'Reilly course, inspired by Matt Lee May, Agile for Everybody, because what essentially this means, if you want to make an impact, if you want to create some change and have meaningful impact in people's lives in Africa and the world, it starts with embracing change. And really that is what Agile is all about. When you look at how do you embrace change, inspired by Charles Darwin many centuries ago, his famous quote, "It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." So it means even right now, as we undergo lots of changes, the COVID pandemic, business models being challenged, how to adopt a hybrid way of working. And what does this mean for all of us? It means at a personal level, we need to embrace change. And then how else can you be the change? When you look at in terms of having a shared purpose, and in organizations, in many agile transformations, it's around having a shared purpose around the customer. So how do we start looking at our customers first, really empathizing with them and understanding their needs, to truly embody that agile mindset? Because when you look at the agile manifesto, the first agile principle is about satisfying our customers. And customers really could be internal customers who are employees and the external customers that we serve. And how do we tap into putting a smile on our customers' faces is through how we work together as people. How do we collaborate? And that brings the other C of being the change. So embrace the change, have a customer first mindset, and grow a collaborative culture. Because Agile is very people centric. It's what gives people a purpose and a sense of belief in something probably bigger than themselves. And that gives them the reason to change, because when they feel they're going to have an impact to the world, and then they start taking meaningful steps towards that clear outcome that's now embedded in them. So I hope today in this talk to inspire you to be the change, even as we seek to create meaningful impact in Africa and the world. So in terms of the practical lessons or insights I've gathered in my experience as an Agile coach over more than 5 years, is when you look at embracing change, it's easier said than done. And when you look at change being very centric around a cultural journey, it means how do we to start being more adaptable and just observing what's happening in our environment? Because when you look at a large organization, it's like a system with very many different interconnected parts. When you look at Africa as well, it's different countries, and how do they connect and play in the global stage? So it calls for people to be adaptable, respond to change, just like the world united in terms of COVID pandemic and what that meant in their lives. So in organizations, it's around being flexible. Are we as business leaders, community leaders, political leaders able to negotiate trade-offs and provide rooms for negotiation in terms of having a growth mindset and starting with having these open conversations, meaningful dialogue. For example, in a large organization, we traditionally have had our strategy cascaded probably annually, but an agile mindset calls us to have regular reviews. It could be through quarterly business reviews. How do you even have that more frequent in terms of at a monthly review level or even daily reviews? And how to achieve this is not really to focus on the processes, but rather the individuals and interactions, listening to other people's viewpoints. And then this is what will establish the culture, the rhythms or the cadence, if you'd call it. And then you're able to get to a point where you even plan just in time and you're really adapting with real customer feedback. And this mindset is what is embodied in an agile mindset, where you continuously learn, share insights, and it's easier said than done, like I said. As leaders in Africa, in the world, we need to model vulnerability in terms of how do we create a psychological safe environment to allow change to happen in our lives, in our work, in our community. It means being fallible at times and knowing that whatever can go wrong and asking everyone else, what is your opinion? What do you think? How do we collaboratively unite to solve this problem? And how do we embrace experimental approaches and move away from, this is a mandate, this is a directive to more of inviting people to co-create towards clear vision, clear outcomes, a better outcome for our community, for our companies, for our lives. And then should things not go as we expected, are we ready to create an environment where we identify the root cause? In large companies, you've had things like bottomless postmortems, where it's not really about the blame game. It's about getting to the root cause, embodying agile techniques like analysis techniques like 5 whys to really get to the root of the problem. And this is how we start living every day, making change, and each person doing their part. And collectively, when everyone takes this call to action, we start to see meaningful change over time. So I welcome the whole of us to embrace change today during this conference. And in terms of customer first, how do we start having a shared sense of purpose, which from the first agile principle, like I mentioned, is around satisfying our customers, both internal and external. And we've seen many companies looking at it from calling it many things: customer centricity, customer obsession, customer first. And it calls us to focus on outcomes over outputs. And you may wonder what the difference is. So outcomes is when you start having experiences that a customer can relate with, their lives transformed, their life better, their pain eased. Whereas when you focus on outputs, it's just things that's innate in you as companies or organizations or communities that you just produce out of various activities. But really, in terms of the impact, has it had in someone's lives? Has it made someone's life better? So we are called today to focus on outcomes more over outputs. And we've seen companies like Amazon with their leadership principles around working backwards from the customer. This is what it means, just having empathy. And in terms of when you have people and you're trying to co-create solutions for them, it's trying to understand what are the functional as well as the emotional needs. And this is a cultural shift as well, because you'll find in large companies that have been successful for a long time, you may find for them, it's about making probably their bosses happy because that's how they're rewarded. But now we are called to have this cultural shift to look at the customer. And really, it's a human revolution. Be kind, be humble, yeah? And businesses now need to relook at some of the measures they measure for what customer outcomes are. You find some look at agility as speed. So they look at velocity, how much is the team able to deliver? And we're being challenged to focus on quality. Will it have impact even as I deliver quickly? And To realize this customer first, it calls again for collaboration, for us to work together, shared operations. In a software development company, it would mean the development team working in a shared operations model with the operations team that interface with the customers. And starting to measure metrics such as return on time invested, talking to our customers, going to where our customers are. So in Africa, as we design solutions for our communities, are we going to where our communities are to inspire them, to co-create with them, and measuring outcome in terms of how their lives have been impacted in the policies we make as business leaders? Are we co-creating, experimenting with them over mandates and directives? And then just that experimental approach, and it's okay to start with the small steps, because change starts with you and me taking small, meaningful steps, but aligned to one bigger purpose, which as leaders, global leaders, African leaders, we need to start creating this vision for our teams to align. And it could be a shared sense of belonging, a shared sense of purpose. Who are our customers? Who is our communities? Who are the people we serve as leaders? And then to connect it all, the collaborative culture you talked about. As leaders, we do not work in silos. Like I mentioned, we work with employees, we work with communities, we work with people who elected us. So how do we start creating cross-functional, self-organized teams, which means working with people who have all the required skills necessary to meet the outcome we seek to find. And you'll find in large companies, again, from experience, it may mean relooking at the organization design. And then in terms of the principles they have, in terms of how they acknowledge and reward performance, to more team-centric, because now you've inspired a team towards a shared sense of purpose, and how do they collaborate together to achieve this goal? And you'll find you'll have to relook at some of the cultural elements in the organization. Probably there was a report critique culture that you had, but now we are focusing in a collaborative culture. We have teams working towards shared goals. So you'll have new norms emerging, like demo days, failure walls, or just them meeting to connect. And we've seen this with the remote world, hybrid world we now work in due to the COVID pandemic. You find teams with virtual hangouts just to connect, because at the end of the day, we are social beings. So Africa, let's unite and create the change. And in terms of the teams we work with, one key element to grow a collaborative culture is trust. How are we building trust in our teams to enable them work and feel safe, even as we strive to be diverse and inclusive as Africa, and indeed to the world. So you'll find some of the strategies is, when is it okay to have a formal agenda? When is it okay to use a more open space kind of discussion, no agenda, come as you are, when it starts is the right time? And then how do we, in line with the 12th Agile principle, create opportunities for continuous improvement, where we welcome feedback, we are honest in terms of what people are feeling or what is in our way to achieving our bigger goal? Because this is what will keep us in check, and it will keep us honest, and it will keep us enable us to grow. So in a nutshell, in summary, I hope this 3 C's in terms of how to be the change, I hope I've inspired a community of leaders who will go and inspire their families, their communities, first to embrace change and to have a shared sense of purpose around customer first, and to collaborate. But then, because we said the world is changing, and probably you're thinking, there's more, what else can I do? So there's a quote here by Alvin Toffler, where he says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn and relearn. So at a personal level, we are challenged to adapt, to have more of a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, to challenge the norms, what we grew up knowing, yeah, in terms of accommodating others in terms of when change comes and how to deal with it. So today I'd like to share with you my inspiration of an agile library in terms of the people who've thought leaders, if you'd like to look at them that way, who inspire us as Africa as well to be an ecosystem of change makers. So when I look at one of the books in the bookshelf, right there, Becoming by Michelle Obama, and the meaningful change when she was the first lady of the United States then, and when she wanted to impact change in terms of the kind of food children are served in schools, and that the providers, the companies would provide. And she started by being the change in terms of creating a small organic garden that every season withstood the storm, the different seasons really, and those produce. And this was, I think, one of an example to the world in terms of how you start being the change, even in your small little efforts, and then really start to make an impact. So I challenge all of us in terms of our understanding now of what agility would mean for Africa, and how we at a personal level, each of us, you and I, start to make a meaningful change, so that as Africa, we're able to co-create solutions to some of our problems, and even through an experimental approach, start having innovations like we've always had. And most importantly, measure this impact in terms of the outcome that it has made to the world, which ultimately for me would be making the world a better place. So it's been an honor to be here. Thank you very much, and let's be the change.